Okay, not much has happened since we last left off. I just changed the header of this a little bit. Yeah, all right, so all we're doing here is we're just spitting back out this answer or the question from the database. Now what we want to do is put some answers below it and make them clickable so we can basically add up our poll, right? Okay, so back over here into the Sublime file. Any text editor will do. Okay, so we are still just basically iterating through this while statement where we are going to find every poll that matches the the query string variable over here. And one thing that I think is important here to keep remembering is this is going to run for as many of our questions that share that same poll ID. Okay, so what we're seeing here is it only runs once, but that's because we've only got one entry in the database with that same poll ID. So we could have multiple questions here. All right, so let's do this. Let's echo out a little bit of breathing room between our question and the answer. So two line breaks should do it. And then let's go get our first answer, and that's going to be answer text 1, if I remember right. Let's go back over here. I've probably been auto logged out by now, but there it is, answer text 1. And then we won't worry about tallying up the count just yet. Maybe that's something that we only show if you've submitted your answer. We don't want to skew the results, do we? And then let's go ahead and just put a dot over here. So we're just going to add on to this string, and then we'll go ahead and put in our line break there as well. And that way, just have one line to copy right now. So let's just go through here and write 2 and 3. And so our question stands out a little bit. Let's go ahead and just make this bold in the beginning. So we'll just put the B right there for bold. In fact, let's do that. Let's be sure we close it off. Otherwise, everything would be bold. And we should be able to upload this now and see all of our. There we go. Let me get to my desktop. It's full of clutter, so I'm hiding it. Oh, no, it's right there. Whoops. Yeah. So there you go. I feel dirty. I revealed my desktop. Not that there's anything dirty on it. It's just I shouldn't ever be saving to the desktop. All right, so there we go. Let's reload this up after uploading the file. And give it a sec. There we go. All right, so have you been there? Actually, that doesn't look too bad, does it? Okay, so now we need to make these actual links that we can click on. And get ready. Okay, so we're going to put in here your standard old a link for HTML. Now, keep in mind that normally this, if we were going to write out this HTML, it would look something like this, equals, right, with our quotes in there, and then the link to it, right? Whatever the link is going to be. But because I've decided to use these double quotes here in the echo statement, what we need to do is put in here backslash and then the basically these two together equal when it gets printed out, just your double quote, right? Some people will hate me for that. Okay, and I got to do 2 of them, keep in mind, and for some reason Sublime always autofills in that. I got to do 2 of them because, there's an opening and closing one, right? Okay, but we're just going to link to this same page. So all I got to do is put that dot right there, all right? And there we go. Let's put in the closing for the start of our A link, right? And then we got to finish it off over here, okay? Otherwise, all of these would be included in the same link, right? And then, all right, so basically this link is going to go to the same page that we're at. All right, we don't need to make a whole other page for this. But what we want to do is we want to put in our query string variable that we're already using, right? Which is the poll ID, okay? So here we go. You ready for this? Put in your question mark, right? Poll ID. Now that's going to equal. Okay, now let's step out of our basically this chunk of string that we're writing. All right, now I'm going to do dot dot so I can start putting in the variable again. Okay, the PHP variables. And yes, someone out there is like, well, you could do it a different way. And yes, you can do it a different way. There's lots of ways of doing things here in PHP. I actually like just being able to easily identify the color-coded variables, okay? So here's what I'm getting at. I think I could have, and I haven't tested this in a while, I think I could have just written something like this, and it would have recognized, oh, there's $sign there. That probably means he means an actual variable from the script, right? But you know what? To me, this is prettier, and it's all about what's pretty in code, right? Okay, so we're going to do that, and then what we want to do is continue writing over here and continue adding in another query string variable. So instead of putting in another question mark, what you do here is you put in this ampersand, and then we're going to say answer equals, and we know that this is always going to be the answer for question, basically our first answer, right? Okay, so the answer text 1. So we don't need to put in or repeat out the answer text or anything like that. Just 1 is fine here, okay? And then what I would do at this point is I would just copy this out twice and start renaming stuff. Okay, so again, poll ID, that's going to stay the same for all of these. Answer is going to be 2, answer is going to be 3, answer text 2, answer text 3, and then let's go upload this bad boy. So again, replace that, go over here. It doesn't look any different, but look, when we scroll over, okay, you can see down here at the bottom over here, right? 1, 2, 3. And of course, I could click on these now. Let me get rid of my... I could click on these now. And this is even more important, is that we're actually seeing up here at the top that poll ID did come in, right, as it's still at 1. And then we've got our answer at 1. So we've got this new query string variable that we can use. And of course, you just for good measure, just go ahead and test each one of them. Okay, so now what we want to check for when we get up top here is an answer, right? So let's just put in here the answer. I don't know why I'm putting the in front. I just am. Okay, so we'll do the same thing that we did before, right? So we'll just see if this is set. All right, so we can just put in here answer. Okay, if that's set, then what we're going to do is make this equal to that, and then we'll use that to add up the database values for that particular answer. And you know, now that I'm looking at this, let's also put in here an AND statement that just checks to make sure the poll ID is greater than 0. Otherwise, we don't know which poll to attribute the answer to. Okay, so good news, we can copy a little bit of what we've already got. So let's go ahead and just take all of this right over here. We're going to paste this on in, and we are going to select that poll ID. So that basically the same one again. This time around, all we really need to know, we're not going to echo anything out here. We just want to get the value of the current value of that particular answers count, right? So what we'll do is we'll just put in here, and let's get rid of that too. If the answer equals 1, we're going to do something there, and you get the point, right? Just do the same thing. Okay, so that's going to be 2 and 3, and let's just make a variable here, current answer count equals 0. Okay, so this is then going to equal, and if it's answer 1, what we're going to do is basically get the row for, it's going to be answer count 1. And then of course after this, what we'll do is add it up, right? So we're just going to then say, so after this, just lazy way of running that. All right, so here's the only problem so far is, and I knew way back when that that we needed some other identifier other than just the poll ID. So let's say it's a poll with multiple questions, okay? In this case, what we'd want to send to the query string variable is not just a single poll ID, but also a particular question, all right? Otherwise, what could potentially happen here is this runs more than once, or I should say this actually runs, yeah, I mean, I'm both true. It runs more than once if there are more than one rows with that same poll ID, right? So really what we should be doing is saying something like, and question ID equals this, and then we would have two D's over there, right? And then it would be something like the question ID. But we're not actually set up for that right now, so let's worry about that at the end, okay? But there's a good little lesson in here anyway, because at least what we can do in this case is say limit 1, all right? Which just means it's only gonna gets one result, okay? Or it gets 0 if it can't find any poll ID like that. All right, so after we've done that, then what we want to do is actually go and update the value of that particular answer. So come to think of it, you know what, I guess what we need to do is just do this in each one of these. Again, another case of there's probably a more efficient way of doing all this, but this is easy. And I'm going to go ahead and just paste this in. Okay, nice thing in here is that updating is at least only 3 lines. We don't have to go do this if and while statement over here. So what we're doing is we are just going to write a statement. And you know what? If you're putting a statement inside of one of these while things, you might want to go and do something like this, just so there's 2 different statement variables over here. It's a good idea. So it's just going to equal, again, we use MySQL prepare. This time around, instead of selecting anything, what we're doing is we're updating one of those columns. So we're going to say update WP Cartoon Smart Polls. Okay, same table name. Set the answer count 1 equal to, again, we're going to use this bind parameter over here, equal to the question mark, okay, where poll ID, again, is going to equal that same poll ID as before. So we put 2 D's in here now. We've got our current answer count, right? Both are number types, so we use D. If it was a string value or variable character value, you could use S instead. And then, of course, we reuse our poll ID over here. And again, if we had multiple questions for the same poll ID, then we'd want to drill down and add in some other variables. But we can do that later. All right, so the only thing that's going to change in these other statements is just going to be, that's going to be 2, that's going to be 3, right? And voila, that should increment upwards our poll. Now, and you know what, let's go ahead and test it, make sure we don't move on with this being incorrect. And just so I don't look like an idiot in my own tutorial here, I did go ahead and test this. I clicked on that twice. Of course, visually we didn't see anything happen. Of course, that's something we'd want to change in a second. But you can see that, and I hit answer count. I answered 1 both times there. So you can see answer count equals 2 now, right? Okay, so that means that it is working. What we would want to do, most likely, is give people some sort of feedback that that things are going as planned. So let's go that their vote was actually registered. So something that we could do here is check to see if this is anything other than 0, right? And then in which case we start showing people the a slightly different version of this down here. Maybe we show them basically reveal what the counts are, right? So again, kind of a lazy way of doing this. Let's just say if the answer is greater than 0, we'll just block this entire thing off over here, right? So make it prettier. Else we do what we had before. Okay, so when you first land on this page, this is obviously going to be 0, so this runs. All right, so basically no answer has been submitted, so don't show results. All right, but if you have submitted an answer, we'll go ahead and show you what the current counts are. So just put a little dash just after that, and then what we'll do, maybe even go in parentheses here to show them what the results are. No, you know what? That's silly. results. Here we go. That'll look better. And again, let's kind of let's put in here our double quotes so we kind of break out of this so we can get back into just putting in some variables. And in this case, it is going to be row answer count 1. Boom. That should do it. So let's then copy all this right here. Paste that in. And then just change that to 2 and 3. Okay. Okay, and you can see that because I still have those query strings from just visiting this page in here, that it went ahead and it added in a new vote there, and it's showing me the results. So let's go ahead and just take those out. All right, so you can see now if it's just poll ID 1, I'll click on a new one. All right, no, not ever results. Okay, so the good and the bad here, right, which we've already discussed a little bit. If we wanted to assign multiple questions to the same poll ID, we'd have to deal with that, which we got time. We could talk about it. And then also, too, it's completely possible to just sit here and just vote again and again and again and again. Now, that's something that we could deal with, obviously, in multiple ways. One would be to create a session ID that basically just says, "Hey, you've already voted." You know. Now, people could get around a PHP session, which is basically just kind of like a little. It's a variable that's remembered. Let's say so. If I were to keep navigating the site and come back to the same page and try to vote again, I would say, "Hey, it looks like you've already voted here," right? That's not foolproof, though. You know, someone could close down the browser. They could switch browsers. You know, it's pretty easy to get rid of session IDs. So how would you deal with that in other ways? Well, if the user was logged in, right? One of the things that you could do, and we looked at this in a recent lesson, is check to see if they were logged in, right? We looked at that if statement, and then also if and then what you could do is you could grab their user ID and then put that into the database, and then check to see if basically before voting if there's already a user ID matching that. So a little bit more work, but you know what? I really want to deal with the question thing just to kind of show that we could have multiple questions. I think that's kind of the more practical thing to learn at this moment. So let's go back over here to, let's go back over here to our database. Let's change the structure a little bit. So what we'll do is after a poll ID, let's put in here question ID. All right, 12 is plenty. Save it up. Okay, so back over here. Now, because we've added in a column to something that already exists, if it's an integer, it's just going to come in here as 0. If it's a var character or string, basically, it's just going to come in as nothing at all. So let's change this to 1. And then let's go and insert in here another question altogether, right? So again, we don't need that. That'll auto increment upwards. Poll ID, in this case, let's make that 2. Question ID, oh, I'm sorry, no, poll ID, we want to be 1. That's the whole point of this. It shares the same poll ID. Question ID, we want this to be 2. Okay, so it's going to be our second question. And then the question will be, you know, how was your experience? Something like that, right? Don't need anything there. Oh, no, I'm sorry, answer text 1 is great. Super great. Greatest thing I've ever done. Let's make this greatest experience in to date. So there's really no wrong answers there, is there? And it says incorrect integer value. That I think it probably would have just, you'll get that sometimes. And oh, it looks like I put it in there twice. Delete one of them. You can see that what it did is it just complained that I didn't put a number in there for answer count, for the answer counts, but that's okay. It ended up just inserting it anyway and just putting in 0 over there. Okay, so now let's go back over here to our code. Actually, you know what? I think we can go directly over to here, and then let's just refresh this. Okay, so you can see it's already got the question back in there. We should probably put a little bit of space between this final answer and that next question. But yes, this is the results. Yeah, all right. So there's already some interesting things going on here. It looked like, because we put in here that we just only cared about or just finding one result when we submitted an answer. For whatever reason, it picked the second question, and it looks like it added to that. Right, or might have even, yeah, it's hard to say. But anyway, that's the whole point. That's what we're going to fix right here. So let's do this. Let's go back over into here. Let's give ourselves kind of a nice little refresh across the board. So let's just take all the answers back down to 0. Right, and let me refresh this. I think, yeah, okay, answer count 3 is still at 2. Okay, now, all right, so we got basically a clean slate over here, so I don't mess this up accidentally. Let's go ahead and just take out that. All right, so we're going to pretend that we haven't answered anything at all. Okay, those are all still links and everything like that. Yep. Now what we need to do is go back into here, and when we... Well, let's do a couple things. Let's go ahead and put in here a little bit more space between these. All right, now let's get the question in there. So what we're gonna do is, let's just type it right after this. It's gonna, this line's gonna start to wrap around. All right, we'll put in here question ID. This is gonna equal, and then break out of that. So then we just want to take that right there. I believe we called that question ID, right? All ready for, no, just, yeah, question ID. Okay, perfect. Okay, so question ID. So then just copy this part. Oh, I'm sorry, actually copy that to that. All right, that should look right. Okay, and then we're going to need to do the same thing down here. Okay. Excitement is building, right? Let's save that. Let me go ahead and upload this. All right, and if you keep your eye at the very bottom down here, what you're going to see is it looks like we do get our question ID in there, equals 1, equals 1, equals 1. So it's going to be the same for all three of those. And then as we move down here, question ID equals 2, equals 2. Perfect. Let's not click it yet because we know that that's still going to not do exactly what we want. So now, when we get over here, what we want to look for is, so we're going to check if question ID, there it is set. Then in that case, just copy this right here. Then let's just put it here. The question ID is going to equal that. Okay, so now what we can do, let's go ahead and copy this, is select where poll ID equals that and question ID equals, again, do this right here, that question mark, so D, and then of course you got to make sure you do these in the right order. Okay, so if poll ID is before question ID, it's going to be before it down here as well. And then in the question ID, all right. And then what we want to do is also include that where we go and we update this too. So set answer count equals 1, where poll ID equals this, and again we could just copy this right here, and question ID equals that, and of course we'll just then tack that on right there. We do want to make sure that we have an extra D in here now because we've got 3 numbers we're submitting, 1, 2, 3, or using, I should say, for that statement. So go ahead and just add in a D here and here. This is one of the things that's going to trip you up the most with database programming. And hey, you know what? The worst thing that happens is it doesn't submit correctly, right? It's getting the wrong number of things in one of these bind parameters. Okay, but I believe that should work right there. So let's give it a shot. All right, here we go. I've uploaded everything. Now, of course, clicking one of these is going to show us the results for both of them. But hey, that's all right. And sure enough, I'm just kind of going through here, clicking each one, adding that up. Look how fast that is, too. That's something you don't really have to worry too much about with MySQL and PHP. Is the speed is just phenomenal. I mean, just consider what's happening here. I'm clicking and you barely even see a refresh or anything like that. So you know, hey man, that's my court ordered teaching for today. Again, you know, it's a much larger discussion if you start getting into how do we prevent people from, you know, doing exactly what I'm doing here, is voting more than once, and also too, you know, is this the greatest way of stepping through a poll? No, it's not, because obviously, you know, you gotta probably be better to break these up by particular pages. But hey, you know what? I think you all learned a little something here, and I'm going to call it a day. Although I should say at the end here, if you guys somehow by some miracle made it through this entire two-parter lesson, well, actually this is kind of parts 3 and 4 of a much larger database course. So if you want to continue with that, head over to cartoonsmart.com. We're going to have lots of different database examples and how you can even tie into your apps and stuff like that. So it should be an adventure. Let's put it that way. Okay. And don't forget, too, subscribers do get free hosting now. Think about that. Free hosting for your website. So if you've got some sort of app that's just kicking around that, you don't have a website for, but you want to have a website for your app, that could be one reason. You know, a lot of people, they don't create a dedicated website for some of their other side projects. And I say app, but it could be any side project. It could be your portfolio, I don't know, film, demo, reel, whatever it is in your life that you want to show off, but you don't want to commit to actually getting paid hosting for it. Well, guess what? You get that as part of your subscription package at cartoonsmart.com. All you got to do is give us the domain name, okay? Point that to us, and then we'll set up the hosting. Okay, that's it.